has shown a predisposition to Black Lives Matter and is ignoring the 1953 law that the president is using in order to enforce the ban of people. There is nothing, again, misconception lies on the part of the Democratic Party and the mainstream media. There is nothing in the executive order that mentions the word religion. There is no religious test. It is a geographical test. If you're from this country, you ain't getting in, at least until we can figure out whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. And we're going to take at least 45 days to begin to review that. If we can't do it in 45 days, under the 53 Act, the president has the right to extend until he believes that there is reasonable care bringing immigrants into the United States.
Well, the thing,
May I add something?
well,
May I add something?
yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead, IQ, and then I want to ask Don a question.
These people, they don't have the right to come. Coming to America is a privilege, not a right.
Absolutely, IQ. Absolutely. We always forget that. You know, I'm the son of immigrants, and he always viewed it as a privilege that he was in this country. Dan, you're right, but you know what the Democrats have and all these critics have seemed to have forgotten? The word reasonable. You know, we used to be a nation of reason, a nation that said, let's do things that are reasonable, that seem correct. What we have now are strident people talking above, not talking, shouting at each other and shouting above each other. IQ, I commend you always because you put everything into simple, stark terms.
Yes.
You know, I just want to point out something. You know what's leading the New York Times right now? You know what's the most important item that the New York Times considers right now?
Jesus.
It's the splitting of the Antarctic ice mass.
Of course.
That's their number one story.
It fits with their belief on global warming, which is another subject we can talk about later too.
It's not warming anymore. It's changed. Dan, you're not with it, man. It's
well, yes, I am. I read the.
You're not with it, man.
But you know, Jiggy, when you brought this up and said I was looking at it, and of all the things in all the world, what does the New York Times consider the number one item? The fact that the Antarctic ice shelf is splitting apart. You know, and seeming to forget that at one point the Antarctica was a savanna belt. That below it is coal seams, but they seem to forget that. You know, I'm getting a little, quite frankly, a little tired of all of this. I said last week about the fact that if Donald Trump walked on water, they would say he didn't swim. He can't swim. But you think about all of the things we're talking about that they're bringing up. If you read the polls, you think he's got he's Athel of the Hun.
Yes.
But if you read the polls of people who do reasonable polling, the LA Times again is starting to come out there. A lot of people approve of what he's doing, and that's the point that we should be focusing on, is the fact that he's doing, unlike many politicians, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do.
And see, this is the thing, and we've got Don Mazzella with us today, Dan Perkins, IQ Al Rizzoli. What was funny over the weekend, and Don, this hits exactly to what you just got done saying. I did an interview for the TV side with a professional wrestler by the name of Road Warrior Animal on Saturday, and
wait a second, what a great name for a wrestler.
Yes.
Road
Road Warrior Animal.
State of some country,
and he's one of these old school 1980s, 70s wrestlers, and we're talking about various things, and what I found with, and I don't know why this is, but I found that the pro wrestlers, and even when we went out to Vegas and talked to the porn stars, they don't really want to talk about their industry because it's boring to them. They'd rather talk politics. And so at one point I made some comment about Donald Trump, and Road Warrior Animal starts going to this thing about, yeah, I love Trump. I voted for Trump. I got on the Trump train, and then he started telling me about how he has done more before he became president than Obama did when he was president. And then he quoted the exact line that Don Massella just got done saying before I went into this spiel. And it's like, people all doesn't matter. Political people, non-political people, they all get it. They all love what's going on. But the polls and everybody else is like, no, he's the most unpopular president ever. He sucks. And it's like,
well, but I'm hopefully tomorrow I'll look at some of the polling data, because I was the one, Don, you may remember, who broke the code on CNN's polling data where they were oversampling Democrats, undersampling Republicans, and oversampling independents in order to come up with the poll results they wanted, showing Hillary ahead. I need to spend some time looking at the footnotes of the polling data. But I look at what's going on. I wrote a piece, Jim, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was on Constitution, about can the Secret Service really protect President Trump? And when I talked to some of my friends and family members about the article, they didn't think I should write it because it might be too controversial. So at the end of the article, I said, well, why don't you go, if you're concerned, why don't you go to Google, do a Google search on number of tweets and emails and everything else on assassination for Trump. I saw a report yesterday that Twitter alone has reported 12,000 tweets on the assassination of Donald Trump.
This is I'm amazed by all of this. IQ, when you hear these stats, what do you think about all of this?
Very simple. Honestly, everything I said before, everything in life is simple, except the human brain. It complicates everything. When I see these things, I said it before, I was worried about Trump being assassinated while he was going for the presidency. I'm still worried about Trump to be assassinated because the media and the intelligentsia, so-called intelligentsia, the academicians,
yes,
as well as the news media, as well as the Democratic Party, have been inciting, literally physically inciting to kill him.
IQ, the reason Trump was not assassinated when he was presidential candidate is no one believed that he was going to win.
Yeah.
Don,
you are completely
it's really
correct on that.
interesting. I'm going to go sideways for a minute, but it's very interesting. Now we're getting the memoirs and the stories about the campaign. But in the Hillary camp, no one seriously believed, except Bill Clinton, which is interesting, that she was going to lose. Bill Clinton came in, apparently, there's a story coming out, came in 7 days before the election and told his wife and her top people that she was going to lose. And apparently they looked at him aghast and literally shoved him out of the room. But apparently 7 days before, Bill Clinton's, anyway, that's the word around.
Yeah, but the rest of that story, Don, is that Clinton specifically said, you're ignoring the Midwest and the Far East. You ignored Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. And when you ignored that, you ignored the blue-collar vote. Yes. And that spread to West Virginia and all the rest of the middle part of the country. And so she clearly thought she had Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. They were her firewall locked up, and so she chose not to campaign. I wonder when all of these memoirs will come out, well, whether there will be somebody from within the campaign will say, we screwed up, she didn't campaign enough, or somebody's going to say she didn't have the strength to campaign as much as Trump, and that's why she lost it.
What I think is funny about this whole thing with Hillary is that there was some report that came out shortly after the election was over with that Bernie's people had met with the Clintons and they had told them this. They said, here's where, you need to go campaign, here's what you need to do. And they all laughed at him and said, yeah, whatever. And they offered campaign information, they offered stats, they offered surveys, and they were all like, no, we've got this all locked up, we don't need to talk to you people. And
so I want to, Jim, I want to ask my partner a question, and you can chime in on the answer too.
Yeah.
We have loggerheads here. We have Trump continuing to do what he wants to do, what he promised to do. And we had a situation, for example, today where Vice President Pence had to break a tie vote for a confirmation for a cabinet office in education.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, and I heard Maxine Waters today talking about she thinks Trump ought to be impeached. She doesn't know why, but other than she's just hoping that he'll be impeached.
I saw that.
But here's my point. Here's the loggerheads that I see. Trump is doing things to try and get the economy growing, to put people back to work, to put money in their pockets, and get the economy moving. Democrats and the news media are against him and what he's trying to do. My question as an old newsman, Don, at what point does America tire of the news cycle the way it's going now?
They did. They have. They have. They're not, Trump was elected.
No, that's not my question. My question is, he's elected.
You're right. I went to a gathering of New York journalists, the elite of the elite, Friday night, and I stood there. You don't sit at those events, and listen to them talk, and there's a growing realization between the differences between the rank and file reporters who are starting to realize that their message is not resounding out there in the hinterlands. Again, if you look at the Democratic Party, what is it today? It's the Northeast and the West Coast, everything in between. And as you pointed out, Dan, Trump took 83% of all counties in the United States?
Yes.
Okay. That's a fact. When I mentioned that Friday night, it was like someone actually, there were 2 or 3 people who actually went to their phones to check out the fact. And it started to dawn on people that in the media that their message of anti-Trump and anti the small person, the small businessman, the small everything, just ain't playing well. So to answer your question, Dan, I think it's already happened. And the fact that Megyn Kelly is going to be the new voice of the Today Show tells you
she's replacing Matt Lauer.
Matt Lauer is staying because he's got a contract, but his partner is leaving, and the woman who had the 9 o'clock show, who was one of the people that openly wept, she's out on her can.
Is it a nice can?
Turned down millions of dollars in a contract because Megyn Kelly is given the 9 o'clock spot in preparation to getting the Today Show. I mean, it's in the wind, and if the media hasn't seen it, other people are, and advertisers are seeing it. I pointed out something that earlier this year. You notice the fastest growing two channels, cable channels in the United States, Hallmark Hall of Fame, and Hallmark Mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are two fastest growing channels in terms of viewership.
Mm-hmm.
Does that tell you? And what are they about? Uh, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy finds girl, and in every show there's a dog, and it's all American value.
That's awesome.
No, think about
Every
it.
show has a dog.
No,
That's
true.
what I like about it. Is every
It's formula television.
It's formula television, but it's working.
Sure.
And but what it's also telling you is where the market's going.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Look at Gaga, the show.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a great halftime show.
yeah. But look at it. It was not what I would like, but my wife tells me that it's what the youth wants. But
Right.
it was still, relatively speaking, not. Everybody was dressed. You know what I mean? What did she do? She played at a piano. When was the last time you saw somebody sit at a piano and play on national TV?
Yeah.
No, she did a great job. Everybody was worried that she was going to go political, and she didn't go political.
No,
But getting back to the issue that I raised with you, I'm hearing conflicting stories, and I need you to see if you can straighten it out. Here are the conflicting stories. Since Trump has been elected, the New York Times readership is doubled.
no.
No, wait.
No, the online has. The
Wait.
online has.
Wait.
But it's okay.
Wait. Damn. The other piece of the story is that things are not well in the Old Gray Lady because they're laying off people because they're not making money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, which is
Yeah.
true?
Both.
Both are true.
First, let's make it clear where they are up is they're online, 200,000. They didn't double; they're up 200,000, but their print circulation is down almost 100,000. And where do they make their money? On the print circulation, not yet on it. And I get this, and they are sending. I get every 2 weeks I get a letter from either the publisher or the managing editor saying what a great job they're doing. When was the last time the Old Gray Lady sent out and said she was doing a great job? Plus the fact, for the first time, that you can actually, it says on the website, if you have a story for the Times, here's how you can get to it. For the very first time, the great problem used to be is you could call up the New York Times and you could never talk to anybody unless you knew somebody. And that's changing because they realize they have to. But the truth is they're going down, and in 2 years they've either got to pay back the Mexican millionaire Slim billions of dollars, or give him almost 49% of the New York Times.
Mm.
That's the sword over the New York Times at this point.
No. Now, the other quick of media news, Tucker Carlson moved in to take over Megyn Kelly's spot.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people who were concerned that 3 white guys in a row, Carlson, O'Reilly, and Hannity, was not a very balanced network. The polling data so far indicates that Tucker Carlson at 9 p.m. doubled Megyn Kelly's numbers. Doubled them. And when they were queried as to why, Tucker Carlson tends to bring on people where he gets a strong debate, and if there's a liberal, he tends to press them to prove their points. Sometimes they do, Sometimes they don't. I just think that I keep listening to this, and you can how much can you beat a dead horse? At some point in time, and I think that the critical mass, Jim, will be when Mr. Trump finally gets all of his cabinet appointees through the Congress,
Yeah.
through the Senate, and they get in and they start doing things. And here's a little factoid for you, Jim. The Navy SEAL, the SEAL Team 6 commander who was killed, the New York Times reported it as Trump's first casualty.
Yes, I saw that.
But the mission was set up by Obama. Trump's first casualty.
Now,
Not Obama's last day in office is a casualty. But go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Hearing all this IQ from Dan and Don and myself here, what do you make of all this IQ?
He thinks we all need help.
No, honestly, really, it's also, again, everything is simple. If the American public, the ones who have more than two brain cells of logic and are patriotic, they should never buy the New York Times, the Huffington Post, or the Washington Post. They should stop doing it for a month or two. They will collapse within a month or two because there will be no advertising. I cannot understand how any human being with two brain cells of logic and a bit of decency would buy the New York Times. I have no idea. You tell me.
IQ, I will answer that question.
Please.
I can tell you exactly the first day that I started reading the New York Times, September 13th, 1962, well, my first day at NBC News. And in all the years since then, I have read the Times religiously. I gave up my subscription to it a year and a half ago, my print subscription, but found I had to keep the
Online.
print edition, the online edition, simply because you cannot be a news person in this world and not have a lifeline to it. It is still the newspaper of record. It really does not get verified as a trend or anything else until the Times does it. I hate reading it. I find it at times, but you know, as someone said, you have to read your enemy.
Yes.
And you read your enemy's document. You must read it, IQ, and you know, I always admit that I read it, and I read it just before I go on the air for this program or any other program.
I'll tell you what, they have never printed any of my emails. No, not printed. Put it online.
Don't feel like the Lone Ranger. My only source,
What I'm saying is a one-sided affair. So reading it, I swear to you, every time somebody tells me they quoted from the New York Times, I go the opposite direction, and I'm right and they're wrong.
Yeah, it's not what you know on the New York Times, it's who you know at the New York Times. There are many PR firms in New York who exist only because they have a lifeline to the Times. And make no mistake about it, Times people go on to PR careers. You know, it's no secret. The only times I've ever gotten into the New York Times as a writer is because I happen to know somebody that needed a story that I knew something about. But it's true. It's very iconoclastic. It's very incestuous. It's very overstaffed. Do you know there are people on the New York Times who haven't had a story appear in the New York Times for 3 years?
Can we change the subject for a
And
second?
they work there. Go ahead,
No,
IQ.
I'll tell you what. Because these things are not reported in the news media. One of the most experienced police investigators in Sweden, who's retiring soon, he's been for 47 years. You can Google it. His name is Peter Springer. One word, Springer.
Okay.
Said his post was not politically correct. He was putting a post on Facebook. He said his post was not politically correct because In Sweden, if you're not politically correct, you're finished. But he did not care because he's soon retiring. He said Sweden has been hit hard to cope with the unprecedented levels of crimes and incidents. As the National Crime Investigation Service admitted last year that more than 50 areas in Sweden are no-go areas. Police can't go there, fire brigade can't go there, the health and safety people cannot go there. In the report, attacks on police officers were detailed, along with incidents of children carrying weapons, sex attacks, and other violent crimes. I'll tell you this. This is only the tip of the rotten iceberg and the first domino to fall. Because of him, most probably, more police officers will now reveal the whole despicable truth regarding the almost total suppression in the news by the Swedish leftist elites, forbidding both police and media of linking the 1,000% increase in crimes due to Muslim immigrants. What about your thoughts?
Well, I have to tell you, Jim, if you haven't been to IQ's site, you need to go because that story, I read that story yesterday. And the guy who's doing the reporting, I don't know who he is and what's your relationship to him, IQ, but I found him very informative. He makes the dangerous, I consider it to be, a dangerous statement that Sweden is on its way to become the first Islamic state in Europe.
Wow.
Correct. Yes, yes. In Malmo, it's 30% Muslim.
Yeah, and the unwillingness of the news media to report because of the political correctness, the rapes and other heinous crimes that are taking place by Muslims in Sweden are going on not reported, and which emboldens them to go ahead and do more.
By the way,
And you know, IQ, I need to follow that because I read when I was reading a long time ago, reading the Quran and Sharia law, and I remember, and I'm probably not going to say it the right way, but you can certainly help me. I remember reading about Muhammad, and when he sent his followers out into the world, he gave them instructions about what to do with the infidels. And one of the things that I read in his instruction is rape the women because the next generation will be Muslim.
correct.
And that's, I think it is that charge from Muhammad, 1,200 years ago.
1,400.
1,400 years ago. Thank you. Who's counting? But 1,400 years ago is still alive today. And I think that there are people within the Muslim faith, not saying everybody, within the Muslim faith who the reason why when they go into these countries as immigrants, as we're seeing in Europe, the sexual assaults rapidly expanding, is that it's part of the indoctrination of what Muhammad told his followers to do.
By the way, in the 1960s, Boumediene of Algeria said, "We shall invade Europe with the wombs of our women." I'm talking 1960s. Gaddafi repeated the same thing. And every imam, if you Google MEMRI, MEMRI, they have the greatest number of videos live of Muslims talking to other Muslims in Arabic, subtitled, of course, always telling you, we shall rape your women, we shall increase our Muslims until we overflood you. Yes, you're absolutely right.
So let me, if I might just ask you one more, what I think is an important question. There are people in the world, IQ, and I don't know that I've asked you this question before, but there are people in the world who believe that the people who are the terrorists, the radical Islamic terrorists, that they are a very small minority of the Muslim faith. And I know that there are people in this country who believe that there are, quote, moderate Muslims who are much like moderate Christians who don't practice their religion, so that the Quran and the Sharia law means very little to them. Is that a big chunk of the Muslim people or not, IQ? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get this straight, first of all. I'm going to recite to you what the Quran says in one verse. Just listen to this. In Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 216. This is the Quran. It says, Jihad, holy fighting in Allah's cause, is ordained for you Muslims, though you dislike it. And it may be that you dislike a thing which is good for you, and that you like a thing which is bad for you. I mentioned this once before, but I'll have to add to it. In Sahih, in the Hadith, which are traditions about Muhammad. Again, when I quote complete verses and chapters. In Sahih Muslim Hadith 4631, Abu Hurairah said, I heard Muhammad say, I love that I should be killed in Allah's cause, jihad, then I should be resurrected to life and be killed in jihad again. You see, there is a methodology. In Sahih Bukhari, which is another type of supplier of information, Hadith 4.50, narrated by Anas bin Malik, the Prophet said, a single endeavor of fighting in Allah's cause, in Arabic, qital fi sabilillah, which is jihad, is better than the world and whatever is in it. Now, you are talking about, they talk about moderate Muslims. They don't exist. A moderate Muslim, extremist Muslim, radical Muslim, and militant Muslims were created only by the news media. As I said once before, nobody ever heard and nobody ever read about militant Nazi, extremist Nazi, radical Nazi, or a moderate Nazi.
Yes.
Since Muhammad's Quran preceded Hitler's Mein Kampf only by 1400 years, they are identical otherwise. If you bought my book, volume 1, in chapter 42, in volume 1, you will find exact references from Hitler's Mein Kampf identical to Muhammad's Quran. There are no moderate Muslims. By the way, the so-called moderate Muslims are called the stealth jihad. Why? Because jihad is into two components. The war jihadis, which are ISIS, Boko Haram, and all the terrorist Muslim groups. These are the war jihadis. But who supplies the war jihadis? With money, with shelter, with intelligence, with armaments. Who? The stealth jihadis, the so-called moderate Muslims. Don't take my word for it. Ask any Muslim a simple question. He is your neighbor. Dear sir, Muhammad, or Ali, or Hassan, according to your Quran and your belief system, what am I called? That's all. Simple question. You are called an infidel. And what is your destiny? One of two. Either submission to Sharia or extermination. This is it. I told you always, it's always simple. So they are wrong, they are lying. Whether they are Muslims, that's called taqiyya. Taqiyya is in the Quran also, which is subterfuge, religiously sanctioned subterfuge by a Muslim against any infidel, kafir, to deceive.
Let me give you a poll data that came out today. I don't know whether you saw this on the New York Times, Don, or not. I think it was Rasmussen did a poll of Democrats. 65% Democrats say that Christians are as violent as Muslims.
Those Democrats should be put in a concentration camp and executed.
I'm just telling you what the polling data.
I'll tell you what. I know the polling data.
Can I break into this? And
Sure.
Jump in there, Don.
The Democratic Party, as you and I and Jiggy knew it, no longer exists.
Oh, very much so.
Well, you disagree with him?
What's her name? Wasserman something?
Wasserman, Blabbermouth
Schultz or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever.
No, because the Democratic Party up until the 60s, actually, I think was a party of of parts. You remember Will Rogers' old line, "I don't belong to any political organized party. I'm a Democrat." But the point being that what these polls are showing is the leftward drift of these Democrats. I cannot believe that if you had taken this poll in 1960 or 1970 or maybe 80, that 65% of the Democrats would have said that the Christians were more violent than Muslims.
Yeah.
Not more as violent as there was no
or
difference.
or even as they don't view it that way. Christianity has always been, whether we like it or not, the religion of peace. We can argue that point back and forth, but the argument is it's the American form of Christianity is one of love thy neighbor, etc.
Yes.
And what we're hearing from the Democrats today is that Christianity is not. I mean, this to me is a clearer indication than ever that the Democratic Party is moving too far to the left, and as a result, if Donald Trump plays his cards right, he could create a majority Republican Party. Of course, he, like I think Obama, are not exactly party stalwarts, and if anything, Barack Obama has driven the Democratic Party left, and I think too far. It's going to be very difficult to recover.
Donald,
I was saying to some people yesterday at a forum here on Sanibel, predominantly left-leaning Democrats at the forum, 150 people. I said to the group, it seems to me, as you were saying, Don, that the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left, it's not a majority, it's not even a major party anymore. I said, if Donald Trump gets his Supreme Court nominee approved and sitting on the court, whoever those evangelical Christians who voted for him in 2016, he has won their vote for re-election in 2020. That one activity of getting a conservative appointed to the Supreme Court to take Scalia's place will assure him of re-election.
I'll tell you
Great.
what. If and when Trump creates the jobs in the inner cities, and the blacks join him, and the Hispanics join him, the next 100 years there will be no Democratic Party. And I want you to put it on record, what I said now.
IQ, you're absolutely right. The Democratic Party has really just accepted the black vote and never really done anything. They've kept them in thraldom in order to get the votes. But at some point, the blacks are going to wake up and realize...
They are waking up. Believe me, they are waking up. Look, Donald Trump invited the sheriffs to the White House. And he said to them, I saw the program, I saw the whole issue on video. He said, nobody invited you or anybody else who came to the White House to the Oval Office. It's only 10 feet away. When I finish with you today, I'm taking you to the Oval Office. What a difference, for God's sake. No, this Donald Trump is not only shaking America, he is shaking Europe. The officer that I quoted from Sweden, he is only emboldened because of Donald Trump. Don't take my word for it. It's happening. People are getting backbones because of Donald Trump, because of what happened in England with Brexit, because of what happened with the American public who overthrew the system. Literally, you have a swamp. In fact, you don't have a swamp, you have a sewer. You don't have a swamp. Swamp is an ecosystem which is quite functional, but you have a sewer. What do you have? Enemies. They say they are for democracy. They say they are against violence. And what are they doing? Violence.
So, what do you think, IQ, about the election in France?
God willing, Le Pen will win. I
You
mean
think
it.
you
Well,
you
no, I don't say she will win. She has a good potential. 2 or 3 more attacks by Muslims, she will win. She will win.
and the same thing if there are 2 or 3 attacks in Germany, Merkel will
Yes.
lose.
Again, she will lose 100%. 100% she will lose. Yes. It's only a matter of how many attacks there will be. That's
Yep.
it.
Very true. Very true.
Could I go sideways and bring up another subject?
Go for it.
Well, there
You
was
lost your show, Jim.
there was an excellent column by the former head of the New York City Police Internal Affairs Department in the Wall Street Journal on Saturday, and in it he pointed out, I'm getting to it right now. He quoted something which I thought was very interesting. I believe that Donald Trump will reverse. Um, I think President Obama did everything he could to weaken the thin blue line that is our police department against the criminals in general and blacks and specifically. But in this article, this former detective said, according to the database, there's no interesting enough that there is a database, but not published by the Department of Justice. The Washington Post has a database of fatal officer shootings across the country. And interesting, law enforcement officers shot and killed 963 people in the United States in 2016. You know, that really surprised me. That means that of those 963, we only really learned about 3 or 4 of them. In contrast to what people might expect, given the headlines, police actually shot and killed twice as many whites as blacks, 465 versus 233. Of course, doesn't take into account the fact that the blacks make up only 12% of the population. But I found that interesting, and I found the article very interesting because it's pointing out that Trump is leading a resurgence of support for the blacks. And on that point, I turned it over to you to make any comment, Dan.
Yes, Dan.
Well, what I was thinking about, Jim, and thinking about perhaps next week's show.
Yes.
I've got a piece that's probably going to be on Constitution this week, and it's entitled "A Coming Constitutional Crisis: Sanctuary Cities and Drug Laws Violating the Constitution." What is Trump going to do? And we know that California wants to become a sanctuary state. They've hired the ex-Attorney General Eric Holder on a $300,000 a year retainer to fight it. But I think that probably, as I'm saying this right now, Jim, I believe that battle will be the story of this year. More than anything else we're talking about. The battle over sanctuary cities and the funding of state and local governments who refuse to follow the federal law could be a huge story. So we probably ought to do a program about that sometime in the near future.
Yes. I guess before we wrap everything up here, IQ, give us your final thoughts on everything today.
I like the subject, the sanctuary cities, because they are literally undermining the security and the economy of the United States of America. And most probably, there will be a popular uprising against the people who are allowing it, even without Trump.
I agree.
It's interesting that the town next to me, Leonia, New Jersey, had a very contentious meeting, which was reported in the newspaper. Someone brought up that wanted them to become a sanctuary city, and the meeting broke up into not so much fistfights as the fact that half the people in the audience were for it, but the other half, which were there for other reasons, were against it. And according to I only have a newspaper account to go by. It was interesting. The people for it had come prepared and obviously packed the place, but the people against it were just there for other reasons and spoke up against it. So the
Wow.
council tabled the motion for a while. Just found that very interesting.
Well, I guess as we wrap up here, Dan, what's the latest news on your nonprofit and everything?
We had a meeting today with the Chief Master Sergeant of the Army, who was on the commission remembering the Vietnam War, and he presented me with a little pin for my service and as an infantry soldier, and also for what we're doing with the foundation. He's agreed to be an ambassador as he travels around the country. I'm going to supply him with MP3 players on a regular basis, and he's going to try and get me a meeting with the commission leadership to talk about the partnership on songs and stories for soldiers.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Great day.
Keep up the good work on that. As we wrap up here, we'll go to Dan, then Don, then IQ. Go ahead and mention the plugs and the books and everything you guys are working on, so people can.
The books are
check you
available
guys
at
out.
Amazon.com. Interviews and writing are on danperkins.guru. And I may shortly be, believe it or not, Jim, expanding my writing list. What I'm going to write
Wow.
for. Maybe the New York Times will hire me. And the foundation is songs and stories for soldiers.us.
And
Aren't
Don,
you going to tell them about starting March 2nd? Dan and I have a new program. Got our first advertiser today. We're going to be on 10 markets across the country. Recalculating.biz is the site. You can find out everything you want to know about it right there. And hashtag 2SB Digest. We had some really interesting tweets today, and we're about to announce something fairly interesting on that. That's about all I have to say.
How about donmozilla.com for your book?
Thank you. I should mention that. Dan's my best publicist. I never think about that.
that's awesome. Now,
IQ.
IQ.
Yes, sir. Well, it's very simple. Just Google my name, Al Rassooli, ALRASSOOLI. And if you're interested in the book, it's on Amazon, called Lifting the Veil, The True Faces of Muhammad and Islam. It's a trilogy. Back to
And you
sir.
got to go to his website. You need to go to his website.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now,
I wish you were my publisher.
What do you say? I'm sorry. What did you say, IQ?
I said, I wish you were my publisher.
and
Hey, Jiggy, we never hear a
yes.
word about you. We never hear a word about you. What the heck do you do?
It's not about me. It's about you guys. But you can go to JiggyJaguar.com. We also have the brand new app is available, JiggyJaguar.us, or you can get it in the app stores. And then, of course, live from Salina each and every month on Access TV in Salina, Kansas. And very soon, I am going to see if I can get IQ to come on and have a chat with Israel. I know that Dawn and Dan have both had the pleasure of chatting with Israel in the past. And
On more than one occasion. For
yes, and IQ, he's gonna make your head explode.
Me. Hey, Jim, just a quick question for you.
Yes.
Are these shows downloaded on your website?
The radio programs and the TV shows are all available on our website. So
And they're also available on iHeart?
yes, indeed, available on the iHeartRadio app as well. So
That got to be everybody's press guy here today.
you're the real MVP, as they say in the sports world there, Dan.
Okay.
Well, next week we'll talk with Dan Perkins, Don Mazzella and IQ Al Rizzoli once again, and working on trying to get Gun Owners of America Larry Pratt on with us next week. So hopefully we can get that going.
He's good.
But gentlemen,
Yep.
have yourself a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen. Don Mazzella, Dan Perkins, IQ Al Rizzoli, and that wraps it up here for our world famous Jiggy Jaguar Radio.